My mind needed an adjustment. I was operating in a place where I was feeling resentment and frustration. People were feeling that energy. Welcome to the Josh Speaks podcast. I am grateful that you're here listening or watching on YouTube. Today, I want to talk to you about the secret sauce of life and my journey to try to find that secret sauce. I remember years ago in my career, I hit this plateau where I wasn't getting the results I wanted. And I was watching other people around me who did have those results and they were getting coached. So that sent me into a coaching journey. And so I fast forward, I hire this coach because I want the secret sauce. I want to know, what is it that I need to say? What do I need to do? What are the tasks? What are the strategies? I wanted tactics. And so I get into the program and we're doing the program and I'm getting frustrated because I'm like, where is the tactic? Where's the secret sauce? And it took me about a year into it to realize that actually the secret sauce that I needed wasn't a tactic or a strategy or an email. It was my mind. My mind needed an adjustment. I was operating in a place where I was feeling resentment and frustration. And even though I said the exact thing I needed to say with words, it was coming across that I was frustrated and resentful, and people were feeling that energy. And so, what I needed to do, the adjustment that I needed to make, was in my mind. So, that sent me on a journey of practicing gratitude and practicing being aware of things all around us. If you think about the world that we're in today with the 24-hour news cycle, with social media, our screen time, it's scary to look at when you look at the screen time and think about the things that just come at us by default without us doing anything. Things come in our world that are fear based, that are angry, that are sad. And these things are hitting us all the time, making us feel a certain kind of way and depleting and taking away our energy. And so I began to get really intentional and really thoughtful about what I allow in. And so for the longest time, I had this rule, which I still do, is that if I see something on social media, I'm on social media a fair amount. And if I see something and it causes me, if it takes a withdrawal from my emotional bank account, I'm unfollowing that thing because that is a place that I'm at for my business and for my family. But I don't want to have unnecessary withdrawals from my mental and emotional energy bank account. So, step one was kind of taking stock of like, do I need to watch the news? Do I need to have the news on in the background and hear about? It's interesting if you think about the news. Um, they should call it. I think they should call it the bad news because a lot of times on the news, what are they telling you about? They're telling you about every bad thing that happened in your town or in the world. And my thought has been like, did no one help an old lady cross the road today anywhere? Was there nothing good? Like nobody improved their grades at school or got into the school they wanted for college. Like surely there are good things that could be on the news. And I'm sure it's not all bad, but I'm just saying on average, the news that you turn on the TV is probably not something that's net helping our life. You know, now with the internet and different websites and Instagram pages, you can follow the news that you want for your work life, for your personal life. If there's um, mindset things, for example, that you want to get at, faith-based things that you want to get at, there's ways for you to go out and get that information when you want it, rather than having someone else direct that flow of energy that you have no control over at you all the time. So that's something that I've been very intentional about, is removing those withdrawals from my emotional bank account when I can remove them, because I know just like your phone battery in the morning, hopefully you plugged it in the night before in the morning it's full, but as the day goes, you use up that battery and it becomes depleted. So I made an intention of making sure that I reduce the amount of things that are depleting my battery so that I have enough battery and enough energy to get through that day, serve who I need to serve, and be who I need to be and show up how I need to show up. So, removing the negative withdraws and adding in deliberately putting in things that are positive in the morning. I read the Bible. I read different um, authors on things I'm trying to learn about. And I make sure to say or listen to positive affirmations that I've recorded intentionally about things in my life that I want to be true. And I'm speaking them as if they're already true. Um, and I'm speaking that into existence. Words, I believe, are very powerful, and they have the power to be constructive to your life or destructive to your life. And so we can choose our words. So why not choose words that are positive, that will help our life and uplift our life? So an app that you can check out is called Think Up. There's probably other apps out there that do that. Think Up is a great app you can use. There's pre-recorded pre-done for you affirmations that you can do. You can create your own and you can record it in your own voice. And it's powerful to listen to that over and over again, speaking things into your life that you want to be true, that are good, that's the outcome that you want, as opposed to playing over fearful, negative outcomes, which is probably most of our default and something that I am embarrassed to say that I had to work really hard to get to a place where I was able to change my default from fear and negativity to positivity, gratitude, and things going well. Sometimes people say when they're unsure of like emotionally what's going on in your head, they might say, "Oh, what's wrong?" I just out of a default. And so sometimes jokingly, but not totally jokingly, I'll say, "What's right?" Because why not switch, why not switch up our default, uh, what we're thinking to what could be right as opposed to what could be wrong. And so just different ways of thinking positively. I think that many times you can't control a thought that comes into your mind. Um, However, we can choose the thoughts, I think, that we hold on to. If something comes in and it's hurtful to our life and it's taking us to a bad place, why not release that thought and refocus our energy onto a more positive thought that has a possibility of helping our life. And so that is something that I've worked on very hard over the last 5+ years of just being very intentional and deliberate on focusing my energy on positive things. And so the last 5 years of um, the world have been very different for many of us, right? About 5 years ago, 5 years and a few months ago, we entered into a global pandemic called the COVID-19 pandemic. And I've never seen a more widespread fear and division that caused. And there was isolation, social isolation, which I seriously underestimated the impact of community and being around other people that could uplift you and help you out when you are feeling down. And just the energy of being around another person is impactful. And when you have that removed from your life, like we all did for different periods of time, depending on what state you were in or, how you felt about what was going on. I know I went through my own journey about that. And I love facts. So facts are something that I take comfort in because it's data, right? In my job as a mortgage professional, Data is something that I'm used to dealing with. And so when I know the data, it helps me to understand what to expect. And so at the beginning of that COVID-19 pandemic, that whole situation for me personally, maybe some of you could relate to this, it made me a little crazy because there was no consistency in the data, right? Like the data, one scientist said this, one scientist said that. And so I'm just trying to see what is the data, and I couldn't get the data. And I focused so much energy on the data and how to keep my family safe, which came from a good place, right? But it got me to a point where it derailed me for too long from my general default of focusing on gratitude and positivity. Shifted slowly, and how changes I think happen for a lot of us is very gradually and then suddenly. And so you could wake up wondering like, how did I get here? And you got there little by little until it added up to a lot, and then it puts you into a different whole energetic space. And that happened to me during the COVID-19 pandemic. For the first year, almost 2 years, I got off my health regimen. I ate different, I thought different. And so my physical and my mental health got into a place where I didn't want it to. I wasn't happy with it. And I felt more anxious than I had ever felt, and I just didn't like it. And so that felt very overwhelming for a time. And what helped me to move past that was to connect, to be honest about it. To be honest about it, first of all, is hey, I'm in a bad spot. I'm not where I want to be. How do I get out? I needed to take some action. I needed to get around more positive people, people who understood the struggle, were going through the struggle, maybe had been through the struggle that I was in, that could help me navigate my way out of it. And something that I heard over and over again from different psychology influencers that I follow was I heard this theme over and over that anxiety wants action. So many times we feel anxious because we're afraid of the thing that we're going to do or not do. Like in that instance with COVID-19, it was like, hey, are we going to get sick? Is my family going to be okay? Um, Whatever it was, health, oh, my health. So, hey, one bite at a time. There's a famous saying, I don't know where I originally heard it. So I'm sorry, I can't source this properly, but there's a saying that goes, how do you eat an elephant? And the answer is one bite at a time, right? So how do you overcome any what feels like a big task or big goal is just one step at a time. So with my health, one step at a time. I quit buying so many Oreos, and I went back to my grilled chicken and protein shake and lean protein type of regimen, and began to exercise again. Exercise is something that's so good for our mental health, our physical health as well, but our mental health too. There's such a connection there between exercise, just any kind of movement that you can do. And maybe people like me who do a job where you're on the phone a lot or at your desk a lot, we have to be more intentional about that. But even 15 or 20 minutes of physical activity per day, it not only helps our physical health, but it also helps our mental health as well. So, those are things that over time, little by little, you get off track, little by little, you get back on track. And so, something else that was a theme to me during this time where I started moving into a more positive mindset. I don't know about any of you listeners, but I don't know if you've ever been frustrated with someone did something to you or didn't do something for you that they were supposed to do. An affirmation that's kind of an interesting counterintuitive affirmation that I began to say and still firmly believe is that I believe everyone does their best is the affirmation. And I remember vividly presenting this in person, and I presented it many times with that exact saying. It was part of a longer talk on the secret sauce of life. And I had an audience member one time tell me, I don't believe that's true. No, everyone doesn't do their best. Actually, some people are just jerks." And I was like, okay, I hear that. I hear that. However, if you think about yourself and you get real honest, you know that your best is a moving target. Okay. Your best is not always the same. Some days you might be sick or tired, or you got in a fight with your spouse or a friend or one of your kids, or something bad happened at work, or you're just having a rough day. And so sometimes your best is a 2 out of 10 energy, and that's the best that you got that day. Okay. So sometimes it's an 8 or 9 or 10 out of 10, and that's the best you can do on that day, at that moment. So instead of being angry and frustrated and resentful for that person for doing that thing to you or not doing that thing for you, if you can shift your thinking to think, I believe everyone does their best, and then realize that, hey, you know what? Some days, if I'm real honest, some days my best isn't very good. And I want people to have empathy to me and give me grace when I'm having a day where my best isn't very good. And by extending that to someone else, you free yourself from that negative energy that you take on and goes deep inside of you for being angry. Being angry is a low vibrational form of energy, and it takes life from you. It does not give life from you. Giving grace and moving on and saying, hey, I'm going to give this person grace and realize today maybe just isn't their best day, and you move on. It allows you to get back into a more positive way of thinking. And I think positivity is interesting. Positivity gets can get a bad rap depending on who you're talking to. Some people out there, they're like, oh, that's just a bunch of mumbo jumbo, and I'm a realist. I don't know if anybody's ever had someone tell them that I'm a realist. Well, I'm a realist too. And I know that me thinking positive thoughts and doing positive affirmations is not a guarantee of a great outcome or a positive life. I know that. Okay. However, I also think that, and I've experienced this and I've seen other people experience it, that having negative thoughts and being negative and angry and frustrated and resentful, that can almost guarantee you that you're not going to have a good outcome. Okay. So by choosing positivity and grace and empathy and choosing to believe that everyone does their best, I'm giving myself the best shot I can at a positive outcome and a positive life. Just like eating right and exercising doesn't guarantee you perfect health, but it sure gives you a better shot at good health than if you make horrible eating and exercising choices. So I think our mental health is very similar in that way to our physical health, that we have to choose to hold on to thoughts that are going to bring us life as opposed to thoughts that are going to bring us down in our life. And so that's for all you realists out there that are listening to this. That I think is valid and real. I've seen that play out in my life and other people's life. And that's why I choose to think positive thoughts. And as I was doing my word of the year exercise, which is just a word that intentionally I set at the end of each calendar year, I think about what's the outcome that I want to have for my next year? What's the most important theme? And for me, it was this deliberate, intentional return to a general state of gratitude versus a general state of anxiousness and frustration. And just with the different things that I've personally been going through the last 5-ish years, from the COVID stress and uncertainty that I personally dealt with. My wife Jess and I built a new home, which was super wild because it was during like the height of COVID, and our builder, I don't feel acted always super honorably, and that was like just made me feel all kinds of things because I was at that time not as much choosing the thought of I believe everyone does their best, and it got me all kind of twisted up. And I really wanted to make an intentional return to a default general state of gratitude and not one of anger and frustration and anxiety and choosing gratitude is a big theme for me this year. And am we're almost halfway through the year now, and I already see the impact that it's having on me. I still have bad days, just like, if we're honest, all of us have bad days. And I have, um, I definitely feel like so far on average, I'm having more good days than I'm having bad days. And so I'm excited to see where I will end up at the end of this year with my um, with my word of the year as gratitude. I have it right behind me here in a big LED sign, and I put it on in my office every day because I want to be reminded as I face the frustrations and the challenges and the setbacks that gratitude is a choice, and I can choose to be grateful in any circumstance. I have had so many conversations, even just this week, where I'm talking to people in my industry in the mortgage space, and there's just um, a general sense of heaviness and uncertainty and fear about what the market's going to do. And um, I think we all have a choice. We have a choice to how we're going to see the world. And I think many of you may have heard the the idea that, like, when you get a car, let's say you get a red car, a red Jeep, okay? All of a sudden you're out driving around and you notice there's red Jeeps everywhere and Jeeps everywhere because now you're paying attention to it. The scientific term, I think, is the reticular activating system. And so what we think about, we're going to see everywhere. Okay. So if you come back to applying that to our mindset, if we think about a negative outcome or a negative world or a negative situation, there's plenty of negative situations and outcomes that you can see all around you everywhere. At the same point, that works for positive, good things. There's an unlimited amount of negative things we could think about and focus on, and we're going to see that everywhere if that's the thought we're choosing. Also, if we focus on the good and the grateful and the positive things, the peaceful things, then we're going to tend to, on average, see those things everywhere. There's an unlimited amount of positive things, unlimited amount of negative things, and the great thing is we get to pick which thoughts that we want to hang on to and which thoughts we want to let go of. Personally, for me, I would love to see positivity, joy, and peace everywhere I look. So those are the thoughts that I am going to try to hold on to. And so I, in closing, the only additional thing I want to share about positivity is that me as a Christian, some people in that community aren't really don't really understand when you talk about it from the point of affirmations or having a positive mindset. And for a while, I really struggled to connect those two worlds. And I went to the scripture and I searched it, and I found a verse which many people who are listening to this, if you're Christians, you probably have heard this verse before. It's Philippians 4:8, and it instructs us what things that we need to think about. And it doesn't say, think about things that bum you out and think about things that make you mad and sad. Those are natural parts of life. The Bible talks about them, but the instruction is for us to think about intentionally things that are true, that are joyful, peaceful, noble. These are like, that is what God wants us to focus on. And so those are the things that I want to, on average, focus on. And then I want to give myself some grace for times where I can't do that, or I'm just having an off day and I try again. I think that's something that we all could focus on. I think that um, tying that all back in, I think that those of you who are listening to this who don't know Jesus and aren't a Christian, you might, um, I think the world tries to find, to fill that void that only God can fill. And we try to fill it with other things that make us feel good. We try to fill it with, sometimes maybe it's positive affirmations. Sometimes it maybe could be things that are destructive for us, bad habits, bad um, foods, bad alcohol, the many different things that we could try to fill that void with. But really, at the end of the day, God is the only one who can fill that void in us. And that's something that I was thankful to use gratitude to make that connection, that this whole positive affirmation thing isn't just something um, that's just nice. It's actually something that God told us to do, is to focus on the positive. And years ago, I got advice from a coach to on social media, when you put stuff out there, which certainly this podcast would fall into that category of things that you're putting out there into the world. He said, you know, politics and religion, don't do it. Stay away from it. Just, it's divisive. You're gonna lose some of your audience. And for the longest time, I chose to follow that advice, which was to not say anything political or anything about my personal faith in anything public, because I didn't want to lose any connection to anyone who could possibly do business with me or befriend me. And one day I realized, politics is, I don't know any politicians personally. Like, yeah, I have some beliefs, but it's like, it's not um, super critical, I think, long term, eternally. I think generally with politics, I think we all agree on the problem. I think sometimes we can disagree on what the solution is, and that's just, nothing, that's not life or death. But my faith, I think that is a life or death thing, and it does have an eternal impact. And so I uh, came to the position that, if somebody doesn't want to be friends with me or do business with me or be connected to me because of my faith, I was okay with that. And so I began to talk more and more freely about that. So you may hear me from time to time mention things about my personal faith, mention the Bible. These are just stories from my life that I'm sharing and things that have helped me. And so I wanted to share them with you. Personally, I have experienced, as a flawed person with many faults, I have personally tried to fill voids in my life with things that were destructive, and it didn't lead me anywhere good. And the only thing that brings me back to center, that grounds me, that gives me hope, is when I come back to the Lord, and I get that strong connection. And so I just wanted to share that with everybody, because um, that's the truth, and that's my truth. And I'm just here to tell you my story. So until next episode, I appreciate you guys for tuning in. Very grateful, and I'll see you next time.